Right now, high drama unfolding in the murder trial of Martin McNeil, the former Utah doctor facing first-degree murder charges in his wife's death. Today, one of his daughters finishing her testimony, and medical examiners and experts are expected to take the stand. McNeil, as we've told you, is accused of giving his wife, Michelle, a deadly dose of prescription painkillers and then drowning her so that he could be with his mistress. The couple raised 8 children together, 4 of them biological: Rachel, Alexis, Summers, Vanessa, and Damien, who committed suicide in 2010. 4 adopted daughters as well: Sabrina, Ellie, Giselle, and Ada. Just yesterday, we heard from daughter Vanessa, who was very emotional when asked about her father's mistress.
Was convinced that she wasn't somebody to worry about that my dad might be involved with.
And why is that?
Because she was nothing like my mom.
One of the doctor's 2 alleged mistresses also testifying. This is a picture of both women. Gypsy Willis, to your left, whom McNeil hired as a nanny just days after his wife died, and Anna Walthall, to your right. She told jurors that McNeil once described how he could induce a heart attack.
There's something you can give someone that's natural, that's there after they have a heart attack, so that it's not detectable after they have a heart attack.
Okay, so you can give someone some sort of substance that's
Yes.
naturally occurring in the body,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be there after the heart attack, but it would also start a heart attack.
Yes.
And so you could cause someone to have a heart attack, and the drug would supposed to be there anyway, and so you wouldn't be able to tell.
That's correct.
Well, the mother of Gypsy Willis, one of the women, also took the stand, claiming that McNeil confided in her.
He said to me that he had never loved Michelle, and then he amended that to say, I did. I loved her as a sister, but I did not love her the way I love Gypsy.
So there is a lot of circumstantial evidence, but is it enough to convict a man of murder? Let's talk about it with Tom Caniff, a criminal defense attorney, and Dan Schorr, a former prosecutor. To you, Prosecutor Schorr, first. You say there is plenty of evidence here, but convincing the jury is another thing.
Right. Well, we know that he encouraged his wife and pushed her to get the plastic surgery. He then pushed the doctor to give her additional medication. We know that a week before she died, she was found semi-comatose by the daughter, and the wife later complained that the husband was giving her more medication. He also had that statement that you referenced before to a prior mistress, saying that he knew how to give medication and lead to someone having a heart attack. After his wife dies, he's texting with Gypsy, his mistress. During the funeral, he's texting with her. He's sexting with her the day after the funeral, and then she moves in a week later. So he seems to have a motive, the opportunity. The question is, can they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this was a homicide? Yeah, Tom, you also spent some time as a district attorney. What do you think? Can these guys prove it?
I think they cannot, John. I mean, look, the prosecution in this case has a Herculean burden. Typically, in your typical murder case, there usually isn't a question that someone was murdered or died under suspicious circumstances. Here, the state's own medical examiners can't even agree on that simple point. So in other words, the prosecution doesn't have to prove simply that the defendant committed the murder. They have to first prove that this was a murder. None of the medical examiners, I believe there's 3 different medical examiners that have conducted autopsies here, they can't agree that it was a murder. They can't agree that this was a lethal dose of medication. They can't agree that it was poisoning. So first, what is the cause of death? Was it accidental or was it intentional? And even if they can show that it's intentional, then you got to prove that the defendant is the one who was responsible for it.
Well, Alexis Summers, one of the daughters, the one who was so tearful in that testimony we played just a bit ago, said there was another near-death experience for her mother. She was taking care of her mother in the days after her surgery, and keeping track of every medication she took and so forth. She said her father kicked her out of the bedroom, and the next morning her mother could not be awakened. She had so many pills in her system that she was almost comatose. That says an awful lot, Dan, about what happened in that room when just Dr. McNeil and his wife were in it, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and remember, the wife's face is bandaged from the plastic surgery, so she can't actually see the pills. So she's found semi-comatose by the daughter. The daughter later talks to her when the wife is able to speak, and she says that her husband was giving her excessive medication, and she asked the daughter to show her pill by pill how they feel so she could feel them and recognize what they are, so the next time her husband gives her medication, she can independently confirm what medication she's getting because she can't see, and she expresses fear that her husband's trying to make her overdose.
Alexis also testified, Tom, that her mother told her that she believed that her father was having an affair, at which point Alexis herself takes a look at his phone records, pays for one of those call tracing services, and they come up with the name of this Gypsy Willis, who, lo and behold, becomes the family nanny after the mother died, even though one of the children testified that basically as a nanny, she didn't do anything. Now, I just have to think that if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, this jury is going to find it's a duck.
John, look, I mean, the reality is there's a lot of guys out there that are having extramarital affairs. Doesn't make it right, but anybody who's ever picked up a gossip magazine or watched the news or read a newspaper knows that that goes on. It doesn't mean that they're all premeditated murderers. It's clear that the daughter does not like the father, and she probably has good reason not to like him, but it doesn't make the father a murderer. And I'm suspicious of the daughter's testimony for this simple reason. If the mother truly believed that her husband may be intending to poison her with medication and may have perhaps had a failed attempt to do so a few days earlier, why in God's name would she then continue to allow him to administer her medication a few days later that ultimately resulted in her death? There's something that doesn't add up about that testimony.
All right. It is a really interesting case. The testimony is still underway, obviously. Tom Kniff, Dan Schorr, thank you both. We'll continue to watch it.
Thanks, John.